Hey guys, so used car tires hold a special place among the various kinds of waste that exist nowadays. And today we're going to talk about what the problem with their disposal is. So 3,300 used tires are thrown away every minute around the world. And this presents a huge environmental challenge that every country in the world is dealing with in its own way. Now, the global industry is looking for solutions to reuse old tires, but it's still unknown how exactly they will manage to do it and what the conditions of their disposal will be. The fact is that discarded tires are one of the largest and most problematic sources of waste due to their high volume of production, their durability, and the fact that they contain a number of environmentally damaging components. An ordinary tire of a passenger car is used for an average distance of about 100,000 kilometers during its entire existence. However, if such a tire ends its life in Kuwait, it is sent to the largest tire dump in the world. Kuwaitis have been collecting old tires in the middle of the Arabian desert on an area of several square kilometers for a long time. This landfill is visible from the windows of flying planes and even from space. It is located near the city of Surabaya in the province of Al Jawra. It isn't only tires from all over Kuwait, but also from Pakistan, India, and Malaysia that find their death here. It's a good business for 5 local companies whose heads are willing to take risks for big money. Collecting tires at certain points, they take them to Surabaya under the cover of night, although such dumps are prohibited in most countries of the world. For example, in Europe, a ban on the storage of tires in landfills has been in force since 2006. According to official information, about 500,000 tons of used tires are shredded and then recycled annually within the EU alone. This is approximately 80% of all the tires going to landfills. Moreover, the recycling process excludes burning, since a lot of harmful substances are released from burning tires at high temperatures, such as carbon monoxide, arsenic, benzene, dioxides, and others. In civilized countries of the world, old tires are used to make coatings for sports and playgrounds, horse arenas, and treadmills. They can also be used in the production of car mats, rubber boots, and new tires. But unfortunately, Kuwait has long since started collecting tires near the small industrial city of Surabaya, which holds the record for the hottest temperatures in Asia. Not surprisingly, fires often break out in this tire graveyard. The largest fire started on April 17, 2012. Hundreds of Kuwaiti firefighters, rescuers, and the military worked on putting out the rubber fire for over a month, which wasn't an easy job to do. Millions of burning tires threw black smoke into the sky, poisoning the air of the Kuwait capital and its suburbs. The authorities called the fire at the landfill a local environmental disaster. In October 2020, a major fire broke out again. It was visible even from space. About 1 million tires burned down in that fire. Both fires caused severe air pollution, since rubber burns very quickly and releases toxic black gas, which looks eerie. It is actually scary to think about the damage caused to the ecology of the entire region, considering how many pollutants entered the atmosphere without any purification. After these fires, Kuwait's State Environment Agency decided to get rid of the tires. It was decided to move the tires to a new recycling site and begin the process of turning the giant tire graveyard into a new residential city. Of course, not everyone would be willing to live in such a city, but nevertheless, the authorities were faced with the difficult task of recycling the dump of approximately 42 million tires. It took 44,000 truck trips to transport them to a new site near the processing plant. The tires will be recycled by the Kuwaiti company Global General Trading. The rubber will be shredded and repurposed for local use and even for export. The plant can process up to 3 million tires per year. Recycled rubber will be used to make several kinds of products, including materials used in playgrounds and walkways. The government plans to recycle all the tires and won't allow new tire graveyards to appear in the future. However, it isn't only the air and land that gets polluted by the used car tires. There's an underwater dump of decomposing tires approximately 2 kilometers off the coast of Fort Lauderdale in Florida. It's Osborne Reef, an underwater graveyard of 2 million tires that were dumped there back in the 1970s, during a failed environmental operation to create an artificial reef. Over the years, many tires have gotten dislodged by tropical storms and hurricanes, and have caused damage to nearby coral reefs. Decades later, the tires are still causing a lot of environmental damage as they decompose in the coastal waters of Florida. Osborne Reef was the brainchild of the nonprofit group Barink, founded in the spring of 1972. The idea was to create a reef out of old tires accumulated in a lot of landfills. They were convinced that corals could grow on the tires, which would provide additional habitat for marine life. It was done with good intentions, but as is often the case, it was a poorly thought out plan, which soon led to an environmental disaster. Now, after several unsuccessful attempts to find a way out of the situation, the only rational solution was the complete elimination of the reef. In 2001, the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration started the cleanup. In 2005, volunteers stepped in and removed almost 12,000 tires from the beaches. 2 years later, the U.S. Armed Forces joined the large-scale cleaning operation. Despite all their efforts, only 73,000 tires were recovered by 2009 out of the 2 million tires that were dumped there. It is estimated that cleaning all the tires will cost over $30 million. It should be noted that Osborne Reef isn't unique. Similar reefs were created in the northeast of the USA, in Australia, Africa, Indonesia, the Gulf of Mexico, and Malaysia. In all these places, tires weren't properly disposed of, but dumped into the water, which led to the same kind of environmental problems. It will probably take years to recycle all the tires in the world's largest landfills. But fortunately, efficient ways of recycling tires have already been developed around the world. For example, in Viborg, Denmark, a company has developed its own tire waste recycling process. First, the old tires go to the delivery area. About 35,000 tons of tires get there every year, mostly from Scandinavia and England. These old tires are made from the best materials. They use the very best rubber, steel, and textiles. And it would be a big mistake not to recycle such tires. But these tires are also made from very durable materials, as they have to withstand extreme conditions on the road, which is exactly what makes them so difficult to recycle. But the company has invented a unique way to do it. Tires are cooled with liquid nitrogen to negative 190 degrees Celsius, which makes the rubber very fragile and therefore easier to break down into a very fine powder. The company thus obtains ultra-fine rubber powder of such high and stable quality that it can even be used in production of new tires. Thus, the old tires are turned into the main material for new ones. But such technologies aren't available in third world countries yet. And it is there that wealthy countries often export their used tires to. Once old tires leave Europe, no one can check what happens to them in the future. Therefore, poor countries face the problem of processing them. One of the countries where Europe sends old tires is India. Diesel fuel is produced from old tires there. One of the companies has a plant where they heat the tires in a reactor, sprinkling its walls with magnesium to prevent the tires from sticking to the walls. Salt is formed in the process, and its vapors enter the air. They're dangerous because they contain a lot of carbon, and the World Health Organization classifies it as a potentially carcinogenic substance. The idea of extracting oil and fuel from old tires is actually a good one, but the implementation in India is rather poor. First of all, the problem is its impact on people and the environment. Unfortunately, the factory doesn't seem to be too concerned about this problem. The situation around the plant clearly indicates that no one cares about the environment. There are people living in huts some 50 meters away from the pyrolysis plant, and they get to experience the consequences of its operations. This plant is old, and thus even sulfur can get into the air. Such air is dangerous for people, but it is allowed in India nonetheless. An important property of old tires is their high heat emission. tire rubber has the same calorific value as coal. That is, 1 ton of tires is equivalent to 1 ton of coal. This process is especially valuable in Turkey, which imports most of its oil and gas. However, energy is becoming the primary destination for the thousands and thousands of tires that end up in landfills every year. High heat emission can be effectively used in the operations of power plants. For example, a power plant in eastern Turkey absorbs thousands of tires every day and generates electricity for 30,000 homes. Turning tires into energy is one way to deal with the billions of tires that usually end up in landfills around the world. A tire-powered power plant in Turkey processes 20,000 tons of rubber annually. Special magnets separate the thin metal wire from inside of the tires. The remaining rubber is heated to produce the so-called pyrolysis oil, which is then burned to generate electricity. While it still isn't the most environmentally friendly process, at least these pieces of rubber, which could sit in landfills for decades releasing harmful chemicals, are now bringing warmth to Turkish homes. But the real breakthrough in dealing with the problem of used car tires was made by the French tire company Michelin. The company gathers the brightest minds in the transport industry for the Moving On Tire Convention every year, and it pays off. As of today, about 30% of the components used to manufacture the Michelin tires are made from natural, recycled, or other environmentally friendly raw materials. But the company recently announced that it had found a way to make its tires 100% environmentally friendly, which was made possible by intensive R&D and active collaboration with innovative companies. The concept, called Fission, was first introduced in 2017 as a prototype of a completely organic, airless, smart tire, and inspired by the Michelin Group to set the ambitious goal of making its tires 100% environmentally friendly by 2050. This ambitious goal won't be easy to achieve because tires are made up of hundreds of ingredients. But the French brand's announcement shows that it is close to success. Why does Michelin spend over $800 million a year on sustainability research? It's simple. The company is well aware that a modern tire, or rather its disposal, is a dirty business in the truest sense of the word. Well, that's all for today, friends. Like the video. If you learned something new, share your thoughts in the comments. Maybe you've got a better idea what to do with all these tires. And we'll see you next time.